Thank you, John McGarry of Point Carbon. I'm going to talk this week from environmental groups about the use of creative accounting for developed countries when it comes to LULUCF. I'd like to ask you, are you going to challenge developed countries on how they're using creative accounting in forestry as part of their overall targets? And what can developing countries do to reassure developed countries that their measurement of their forestry is accurate and measurable? Thank you.
Two quick questions. You said, did you just ask the U.S. Congress to approve $200 billion? I didn't quite hear that. And secondly, if the United States doesn't join the Kyoto Protocol process, do you think it would, as a fallback position, still be better for the world if the rest of the nations went forward in an LCA process to talk about reductions?
21st Central Business Hub China, you mentioned about financing. Can you tell me more detail in the emission targets on behalf of G77 you would like to put to USA? Give me the amount, how much they should cut, whether the target now 17% on the base of 2005 enough. Also about the financing, 200 billion US dollars. How does the financing should go? Also, you know there's confidence on that. US doesn't want to give that money to major developing countries, including China. So what's G77 group's standpoint on that? Thank you.
One more question.
Hi, thank you. I'm Graham Harrison from Reuters. I just wanted to ask, you say you have all these demands. In the past, developing countries have largely managed to speak with one voice, but we've seen today developing countries lining up on opposite sides over the proposal made by Tuvalu and another proposal made by China. Is that going to undermine, if developed countries can't agree between themselves, is that going to undermine your efforts to get concessions from developed countries? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give the opportunity to Madam Muller to answer some of the questions.
Yes, thank you very much, and I will also make a short presentation. I am I have the responsibility of coordinating the Group 77 and China in the Bali Action Plan process, and I am therefore leading in the coordination and the negotiations for the group, in particular in matters of financing and technology transfer. I understand that there is a question, but first of all, perhaps the last one I would also allow request Ambassador Lumumba to elaborate on it, on the question of Tuvalu, which is not, of course, a member of G77 in China, as you well know. Not all of the members of the Alliance of Small Island States are members of G77 in China, and they do have very, very, very serious and very important concerns. This is, as I understand it, not so much on the Tuvalu proposal, but on the implications of opening certain articles in the convention. So it's not so much on the substance of the proposal as I understand it, although there are little things that one can look into it. But as I understand it, it's the implications of opening up certain articles of the convention and what it means in the whole process that is involved. So it's not so much that answering therefore as to the division or the perceived division of the Group 77 in China. In the whole process, we have common positions, and in particular, like I said, on financing and technology, and we are very strongly defending these positions in mitigation as well. And there are lead coordinators from the group that defend these positions in each of the elements of the Bali Action Plan. Would you wish me to answer the question of financing, sir? Financing, of course, as you understand, is an obligation of developed countries under this convention. It's not voluntary assistance, it's not development aid, it's not bilateral donor funding. It is a commitment because of, and I believe you had just recently heard the delegation of Bolivia, as I understand it, because of the historical responsibilities for this problem. And the provision of technology transfer as well is a commitment by developed country parties. Now, what about the allocation of resources? That is precisely what the G77 and China financing proposal in this process is looking to. That we want the governance to be under the conference of the parties, and when we say under the conference of the parties, we mean all of us, developed and developing country alike. Now, why is it that it is perceived that in a mechanism, in a so-called flexibility mechanism, and I think that is what the lady was referring to, and this mechanism is the mechanism through which the developing countries are assisting the developed countries to meet their targets. That's why it's called a flexibility mechanism. Every single certified emission reduction unit that comes out of the clean development mechanism is added to the assigned amount of developed country parties. So every single unit of reduction that we make, they can emit. And this perhaps also has a relevance to the question on LUCF, because what we need is to put the proper safeguards. Now, it is clear that there are countries that have greater mitigation capabilities than other developing countries. It is also clear that there is profit to be made. And since this is private financing, it goes where profit is going to be. And that is why the developing countries put into the CDM mechanism what we call the adaptation fund. It is a solidarity fund among developing countries to share the proceeds from the clean development mechanism in a fund that will finance adaptation of developing countries under this convention. And of course under the protocol. But all of this, my friends, including LUCF, is dependent upon deeper targets of developed country parties. Remember, the targets, when one talks about targets, the commitments are on developed country parties. The convention does not stipulate any commitment, obligation of developing countries for reduction of emissions under this convention. Now, there is another thing. It's not just reduction of emissions that we are looking at in terms of developed countries. What we are looking at, and this is again stipulated by the convention, is that they are going to modify longer-term trends of anthropogenic emissions, meaning modification of consumption and production lifestyles. And that is why this convention, weak in some point, are very strong on historical responsibilities. We build it upon scientific assessment of the problem that we are having right now. And we will of course also shortly address the question of transparency of the process because of the participation that the developing countries have in this process is truly open, transparent, inclusive. Because we are the most vulnerable victims of climate change, all of us. And therefore, as the ambassadors indicated, very very deep and targets for emission reductions for developed country parties that would allow, and once again this is in the convention, developing countries, all developing countries, to look towards poverty eradication. There is no developing country in the world today that does not have large pockets of poverty in their country.